All right, welcome to this video where we will be doing what we call as a high-end retouch to this portrait shot, okay? Now, first of all, few things. Before we go on to the retouch menu, there are a couple of issues that we're going to take care of, because anytime you start a retouching process, it cannot start till the time you're actually seeing colors in the photograph which kind of look like colors which would have been there on her in real life. I'm talking about her skin basically, because you can easily see it looks way off, right? And that usually can happen a lot in portraits, especially in studio portraits. If, for example, you're not following the correct procedures like using a gray card, and using only one source of light and all these things, that's got to do with photography. But point is, you can get off colors like this. For example, here it looks too off. Now, usually this can be corrected in most editing software by using the color balance or the white balance function, just like the functions that you have while you're shooting in the camera, you must have seen, right? Here is the surprising part about Picsart, like really, really surprising and, to be frank, shocking. Picsart doesn't have a white balance correction option. I literally researched it on their own website also. They have articles on how to correct white balance, but they don't have that feature on their own app. Okay, so we'll have to slightly do this manually. For example, if you've done my Snapseed for Beginners course, they have a pretty good tool, like a very technical and accurate tool to get the correct color balance or the white balance. Basically, remove any bad color cast in the shot. So how are we going to do it in Picsart? We just have to play around with certain sliders, okay? So first of all, what we're going to do is, before that also, we're just going to crop this photograph a bit, because even though retouching can be done on the whole body also, okay, but usually we're going to concentrate on the face here. So we're going to bring it closer. I'm going to go to Tools, Crop, and a bit of hand is okay, but mainly we want to keep this on the face, okay? So maybe something like this. I think I'm happy with this, and now you can see. So we're going to retouch this. Now, how do we correct the color balance here? We're going to go back to Tools. First thing here that you can, so we're going to go to the Adjust function in the third section here. We've been using that a lot. So the number one thing here that can help you is the temperature slider, because the moment you see this, it feels very yellowish, very warm. Okay, so we're going to go to the temperature slider, and we are just going to decrease this. Okay, so can you see that itself really helps us get a more realistic look. Okay, so this is what we started off with, and I think I'm happy with something like this. Okay, then you also have the saturation slider, which controls the colors. Remember, if you felt certain parts were too saturated or unsaturated, you can play around with that. So maybe I feel this is still slightly saturated, so I'm trying to just, you can see just -10 also is slightly overdoing it, but -5 is fine here. Okay, let's try to see if the contrast makes any difference to the colors a bit, right? So I'm just going to increase the contrast a bit. It just adds back the punch that we lost because of what we did with temperature and the saturation slider. Finally, you can also test the hue slider here just to see what difference does that make. Can it correct in any way? So not really. But if it was something like this, sometimes the hue slider can also help us. But here, no, not really. So I'm going to discard this particular thing, or rather not discard, I'm just going to, otherwise, remember we are working on one section, so it might just discard all the things that we've done. So I'm just going to hit the undo icon. That's all. So hue goes back to 0, and let's just see the before and after. Can you see? From a long press, this is what we started off with. Really off right now, and at least it looks much, much better. Some of the changes will also be made to the color cast in the retouch menu. There's one tool there which really helps to get much more accurate skin colors. So we're also going to improve this further in the retouch menu, but I think this is definitely better. Something like this could have been done literally with one click inside Snapseed or Photoshop. But anyway, right now this is fine. I'm going to hit the check mark, and this is the time we're going to open up the retouch panel, which is fourth from the left here, and you will be seeing that we had a lot of options. We used Blemish in one of the portraits before, but this time we're going to be using almost all of these options. I say almost because some of them are absolutely ridiculous. You don't really need to use those. We'll see that later on. But right now, let's start this process. All right, so first of all, you saw that there are a lot of options here, but you can see the crown on some of them. That means that it's basically a premium. It's only available if you subscribe to the premium version of this app. And to be honest, it's not such a big deal, because most of these things that are available where you see that crown, they can still be done by using the free tools that are here, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do here is we are going to remove the blemishes, just like we did in the earlier portrait. That has to be the first step after color correction. Okay, so step 1 was color correction. Step 2 is blemish removal, so that we get a clear skin before doing things like smoothing the skin and all these things. So let's just clear out the skin. So we're going to hit blemish. This step might involve this time a bit of patience, because we are doing a high-end retouch. So we've got to be careful, okay? We want to do this properly. So I'm going to zoom in a lot, and after, of course, I show you what I'm going to be doing, I'll have to speed up this video, because I'll be tackling each part here and removing even the smallest of the blemishes. So you can keep the size somewhere small. You can see like this, because that's how big these blemishes will be, not more than that. Also, manual is fine. A lot of times, if you press the auto button here, okay, Picsart gets stuck. So I would suggest don't try auto. A lot of times I tried, my app just got stuck, okay? And anytime you make a mistake, you have the erase tool. But let's just start, for example. Also, before I start all this process, I always like to say, before retouching, it is a sensitive topic. Don't worry about those side of things, okay? I'm just showing you what has to be done, because a lot of times your clients will ask you to retouch the skin, okay? So we'll just keep our focus on that part. So let's say something like this. Or just run your finger over a couple of times sometimes, if the blemish is big enough. Okay. So you can see this is going to be a pretty slow process. You need to be patient with this. Also, make sure, it's kind of funny, but make sure your phone screen is clean, okay? Before you start this process, there's some spot there, you might just keep running your finger on it, and that might just be on the screen, okay? Happens a lot, especially in Photoshop when you're doing it on a desktop, because sometimes the monitor screen can be a bit dirty, okay? All right, so you kind of get the idea, right? If I show you, can you see? When you just look, when you're doing it, it may not be apparent that it's actually doing something, but only when you long press and see the before, you see, yeah, it is leading up. It's doing a good job, right? So I'm going to be doing this throughout. There might be some bigger areas which I'll avoid, like for example, something like this on the cheek, like that's a long thing on the right, okay? So I don't want to be doing something like this. You can, okay? But it just doesn't do a good job. Can you see? It just leaves that little line. So I'm going to avoid big lines, but something which is like this, which is big but not that big, this is fine. Okay, you can still work on this. Even sometimes, this is kind of involves trial and error to see whether this does a decent job. So you'll have to sometimes just do a trial and error. If it doesn't do a good job, you hit the undo and leave it, because there are some other tools which we are going to be using later on to soften these big areas. Also, right now we're working on the small blemishes. So let me now speed up this video, okay? And I'm going to see you after I have done most of the cleanup here. All right, so I'm just done with that basic blemish removal. Just let's see the before and after here. So you can see it's made a lot of difference. Just cleaned up at least those small areas, even on the body here. See? So that didn't take too much time. And at this point, for you, I would highly suggest, okay, press the check mark like this. Okay, go and save the draft. All right, so we are back to the retouch menu now. I'll try to Now, to be frank here, you can go by using any order, but one of the steps that I would highly suggest you do first after your blemish removal is go to this skin tone option here, okay, next to the blemish tool. So there's a skin tone. Because what this is going to do is, remember we were facing the problem of height balance. This can just help you even slightly, make the skin color more correct, okay? So here you'll have to take a call according to the client or the person that you've shot. If you know what exactly how their skin color is, you can kind of take a guess how light it was, how dark it was, and you can choose one of those skin colors from here. Or what you can do here is that, just take a guess and try to choose one of the skin colors. And because you would have seen your client in real life, you'll kind of come to know whether it's close to that or not. For example, here in this case, let's say if I was to select somewhere like this in the middle, okay, and I will start painting that, okay, if I show you the before and after, can you see it just slightly puts it off? That means this is not kind of looking good in this, because I deliberately chose a darker color here. It's not really working too well. So this probably was not too apparent, but something like this, can you see? It just kind of changes the hue a bit according to the shade that you select, wherever you start painting. Okay, so I'm going to hit back because that obviously is not looking good. In this case, okay, because she's a white person, I would choose one of these shades here, okay? So according to me, either first or second should be fine. Let's start with the second one and let's try to see. Okay, let's see the before and after. Yeah, this is actually kind of improving and getting rid of that reddish tone that we were still getting even after correcting the things that we did in the earlier steps. So this is definitely working fine, but I'm still going to hit undo and try the first option also, okay? So this step can involve a bit of trial and error, but it's worth it because it really improves and gets rid of any bad color cast, okay? At least improves it for sure. So see this. Yeah, I think in this case, this is looking better, the first one, okay, the lightest shade here. So I'm just going to do it on the skin. Okay. And if you want, you can decrease the opacity so you have complete control over this. Maybe I don't want it this strong because we had already improved the color cast, but maybe something like 80. So let's see the before and after. Can you see? Just gets rid of those black, the reddish areas, okay? So I'm going to hit check mark. Now is the time we'll start to, now that we've got our color correct, we've got the blemish removal, basic skin cleanup done, we'll start to smoothen the skin. But whatever we do from now on, there's one fundamental step you have to remember. Whenever you use any tool which is going to smoothen areas like this, okay, what you have to always remember, the golden rule of retouching is you should not do it at the expense of losing texture, okay? Always remember that. Texture is always preferred to a fake blur skin, which looks too plastic, okay? So yes, we will be removing that texture, but also retaining a lot of it to keep the realism in the shot. But always remember this, if you have to make a choice, texture over too much blur. That's the principle we are going to be following. So we're going to do all this in a very subtle way. So let's start this process. Right, so the first tool that we're going to be using here is the smooth tool, okay? So I'm going to hit that, and that obviously, as the name suggests, is basically, going to help you do it. Now again, auto usually doesn't do a very good job here. You'll be selecting manual because then we can individually paint on the areas which we want to smoothen out, okay? So let's see. For example, here in the forehead, I don't think this needs any sort of smoothing, right? Because we already have done the basic cleanup here. We're getting a nice texture. The lighting is perfect there. So it is fine, okay? Mainly, the cheeks will be worked upon, okay? So here, first of all, let's try to see this line here that we're getting. See, just smoothens it out, right? A little bit. Though, to be frank, I will not be doing this. I actually liked the original line. Let's try to work on these areas, okay? So, let's try to, we can even increase the brush size, but let me just see, because this changes from portrait to portrait, how effective and good this is working. So you can see it retains the texture, but it still smoothens it out. You'll actually come to know when I hit the before and after. Can you see? but it's still retaining that texture. It's not giving a very fake blur. That's why I like this, because there's another tool which actually does the job faster. I'm going to show you that next, but I don't prefer that tool because that is way stronger. So that's why I like using the smooth tool. It kind of maintains a bit of realism, okay? So you can see the line is still retained, right? That is important. So you don't want to run that too much again and again, because then it starts to give out that blurred look, okay? A bit of it here. As you can see, just slightly blurs it. And this part, yes, we are going to be working on this. Most of it is in shadow, so I'm not going to go absolutely on the left, but let's try it. This. So I'm a part of a lot of retouching groups on Facebook. You should also join if you're interested in this. And trust me, there, if you edit it too much, you actually get ridiculed, okay? If the skin starts looking too plastic, people criticize you a lot. And it's true, because some people really overdo it, okay? And it's a great skill to learn if you want to become a freelancer, because becoming a high-end retoucher, you can really charge a lot to edit portrait. But probably for that, you'll have to use Photoshop, if I'm being very honest with you, because that's where the fun lies. You can check out my course, Portrait Retouching for Beginners, where I teach you all how to do this in Photoshop. It's a 7-hour long course, okay? It's very, very detailed. Here it's much more convenient because we have these tools already readily available to us. There it's more manual. But yeah, this also is good for at least basic high-end retouching, let's call it that way, okay? So you can see, it's done a pretty good job, and at the same time it has retained that bit of texture, so it's not looking fake at all. Now the next tool that I'm going to be showing you does something similar, but it does it like way more strongly. So let's check that out also. I'm going to hit the check mark. All right, so that tool that I'm talking about is next in line to the smooth slider. It's called the face fix, okay? So if I hit this time, you're going to see if I do something similar, like for example this area, can you see it really blurs out to such a level that now you don't even see the texture below, okay? And that I would only advise you to use if the area was really, really not even manageable by the smooth slider. Otherwise, I would highly suggest that you don't use it. You can see, right? Just doesn't look, it starts to look really, really plastic. And a lot of people, what they do is they simply run this on the whole face and they get this kind of look, which, now I'll be honest with you, okay? I do this a lot for my portrait clients. Some people like it. I'm being honest with you. If your client says, okay, I'm happy with any level of smoothing of the skin, okay? If they like it, they're paying you, you do it, okay? But a lot of times, you just have to be, like, you have to take your call, okay? For me, this is like overdoing it because you start to lose the shape of the face along with the texture. But then some people like it. So that's the reason I wanted to show you this, okay? So I'm going to hit undo here and I'm going to go back. So we are not going to be using face fix because that'll be overkilling it. Couple of things like eye bags. You can see there's a premium crown on it, but basically if there was any dark circles, it removes it. You don't really need it because this can be fixed by using the face slider, the blemish removal thing that we did. You can just run that over. Again, HD portrait. I don't want to press these icons right now because the reason is it might stop my recording, okay? Because they are premium features, they might immediately access the internet and the screen recorder which is recording this video might stop because of the security settings. But basically it's not needed at all. It just sharpens the photo very badly. You can do it on your own. You can try it on your own because it gives you a preview after you press these. I'm only showing you things which are free and also which really, really help you do things well, okay? Auto. So some of the things that I've not talked about. First tool is auto. That obviously means instead of whatever we're doing manually, you just press auto and just rely on Picsart to do everything in one click, okay? Not a big fan of it because it usually doesn't do that good a job, okay? Then you have something called as makeup. Again, this helps you improve the way the makeup blends. So you can kind of give an artificial makeup. This is actually a good tool, but unfortunately it's available only in the premium Picsart version. This can really improve your shot, but it's not there for free, okay? Skin tone blemish we already used. Wrinkle, as the name suggests, if there were too many wrinkles, you just have to literally press the wrinkle thing and it'll get rid of it. But again, it's a premium version. Hair color is absolutely ridiculous. You don't really want to, let me show you, okay? So if I press hair color, you can change the color of the hair like this. Some people may like it, some people may not. It does a good job in replacing the hair, but then, nobody would really want it. What you can use it to do is to add some punch to the original hair. Okay, for example, this is the original hair, okay? So what you can do here is that, let's keep it on auto because we're not going to be using this anyway. So let's just try to find out a shade which is closer at least. You see? Yeah. Maybe actually this one. Yeah, okay, let's say. But anyway, we can just add a bit of it. Okay, so if you hold down the saturation and maybe you can just use it to add a bit of punch to the hair like this. Then there's nothing wrong, but don't just replace it with the default settings. That's going to look absolutely terrible unless and until that is what you plan to do. Okay, so I'm just going to add a bit of color to the hair, a bit of punch, and yeah, I think that is fine. Let's see the before and after. It's just added a bit of color. So maybe like adding basically like a bit of saturation. So I'm going to hit the check mark here. This was not too tough. Then we are going to go to eye color. Okay, so we're going to actually be using detail also, but we'll be coming back to detail after we've changed the eye color because this is a really fun step. So I'm going to click on eye color and let's see how this works. All right, so the first thing that you're going to do is it's automatically going to detect the eyes in your portrait. And now what you're going to do here is you can see here a couple of options below which basically refer to the eye color. Now so of course you have to choose something just like with the hair that we did. You have to choose something which is similar to the natural eye color of the person, okay? So here she already had like this bluish look to the eyes. So I'm going to select this one and it's going to, of course, really make it really emphatic. You can control that from the opacity like this, okay? Now in this step, don't be afraid of going slightly overboard, okay? You can go to something like this because the next step is where we'll actually make it very subtle. You can also increase the saturation if you want, like this, okay? Something like this. So kind of making the eyes a bit lighter. If you want, you can even change the hue and manually select the eye color, okay? This, I want to go with something which is, so I'm going to go with something like this, or if you're not sure, you can always hit back and you can even cycle through the colors and go back to this one, okay? So right now it's very loud, right? You can see before and after. This is looking really bad, but this is where that invert function really helps us, which is available here also. So on the top you see the eraser, right? Now if we invert it, and we've done it a lot of times, so we're basically coming back to the default, and now wherever we run the restore brush is where it's going to basically start adding back that color. So this is the correct way of doing things. So now I'm going to really zoom in. Now I know wherever I run this brush, that color will come back. So of course I don't want that full effect, right? This is where I'm going to decrease the opacity. Okay, make the brush slightly softer so that it kind of merges with the white part of the eye when we are using this. Opacity has to be really less, okay? That's the thing, because you really want this to be very subtle. And now wherever I run, you see, it's basically going to keep adding how much ever I want. And we are only restricting that effect to the parts of the eye where we want it. So we can really, really zoom into this. The more number of times you run your finger, the more the effect is, okay? So basically you're revealing whatever you did initially, but we're revealing it slowly. Oops. Let's just see the before. I'll have to, I think, press the Check mark. No, it's not showing me the before and after right now, so I'll have to hit the check mark. Now let's see. Yeah. So can you see? This is way more subtle, okay? And this kind of looks good right now. It may not look too great because we zoomed in a lot, or otherwise. Let me just see how it looks from this part. Because you have to see this slightly from far away because nobody is really going to zoom in the eyes so much, okay? So hey, to be very honest, okay, I feel the last few times I ran the finger over there for both the eyes, I probably shouldn't have done that because I just feel this is 10 to 15% overdone. Now, I'm not going back because I'll have to start the process again. It's going to take too much time, but I'm just telling you right now, I've just slightly overdone it, okay? But at least you know the process. So don't overdo it. And maybe the last couple of times I should have just been more careful. But right now, it's okay. It's not that bad also, okay? So you see before and after. I think it's still looking fine, though just a bit overdone. Finally, there's a very important tool here next to the eye color, which is the detail tool, which is something we'll be using now. So let's do that. All right, so I'm going to hit the detail function here. And what this does is now throughout this, the usage of the different tools that we have performed, especially on the skin, we have definitely lost a bit of detail, even though we were just using the smooth slider, which is not too strong, okay? But ultimately, there is a loss of detail. Also, we definitely want to bring out more detail in certain areas. All those areas are areas except for the skin. So for example, skin, yes, we want to smoothen it, okay? But the other areas like eyes, lips, hair, and if her clothes or any ornaments, like for example on the hair she's wearing some sort of clips, all these things actually look good when more texture is present in these things. So we are going to use this detail tool to run over those areas and basically increase their sharpness, okay? So for example, let's start with the eyes. One of the areas where you want this to work is on the eyebrows. So for example here, I can, if I just run over the eyebrows, just see. You see, it just slightly made it sharper. Just see the before and after. See? Adds a bit of contrast, makes it a bit sharper. Okay, it's very subtle, but it works. Similarly for the eye. Now don't overdo this also again and again because it adds just a tiny bit of noise to that part. Okay? So if you feel this is too strong, the next time you do it, you can decrease the slider. And of course, you always have the erase function. For example, I feel on the eye, it's too much, so I can run the eraser and it's going to take it back to default. And then when I'm on the manual brush, take down the detail level, and then it's going to kind of work more in a more subtle manner. Like this, okay? So see the before and after. Can you see? Just made it slightly more sharper. And here also, I would like to actually keep this somewhere on 25. And it's fine. Let's see the before and after. Yes. Usually I do it under the nose, but there's a big shadow there, so it doesn't really matter. One area where you have to do it, where a lot of beginners miss out, is on highlights. Okay, so wherever you see strong highlights, for example, on the nose, can you see this big highlight like this? It's good to sharpen this, okay? So the correct term for these in photography is specular highlights, like these really bright spots. If you make them sharp, they stand out very well and they look very fantastic in these portrait shots, studio portrait shots, okay? So here, can you see we've got these beautiful specular highlights on her lips. So we really want this to become more sharp because just see, right? They really stand out. You can even kind of overdo these because they are highlights, okay? So even if you kind of overdo them, the noise will not be seen here because it's white and they still look good. So this is one area where you can kind of indulge yourself, okay? Sometimes I even these really light, bright parts in the middle of them, I just like to do it so that the middle part becomes slightly brighter. So just see, okay? Of course, on these catch lights, definitely you can, a couple of times. Catch lights are again specular highlights which look really good, okay? I think I missed this out, but anyway, it's fine. Even somewhere in the center, right? You can see here, So maybe once we can run like this, but in the center, keep doing it again and again sometimes, just to add that sharpness in the center. So can you see? Just adds that little circle glow in the center. And similarly, for maybe this part in the center we can, and then just once around here. Okay. All right, and definitely we want to do this on the hair, on the bright parts of the hair. That's going to make it add a lot of punch to this. Just see. You see, it really brings out the sharpness and the details. Also on these little clips that she's got here. So if she was wearing clothes, like you could see the clothes, then do it on the texture of the clothes to get this out. In Photoshop, we do this by using a tool called Unsharp Mask, which is something I teach in my Photoshop course for retouching. Okay, it's very, very similar. Here it's much more, actually, here it's much more automated than that. So I'm being slightly quick about it, but you kind of get the idea. Wherever light is falling, where the hair are bright, we're just bringing that out a bit. And here you can, this is a tool where you can slightly go wrong. It's not going to have a very bad effect, provided it's not adding noise. But just see, the difference is not going to be too much, but just see before and after. You can't really see, but there is a change. The overall shot looks much sharper. This is what happens when you click on that HD icon, which I didn't show you. That it just makes everything sharper, but it does it in a very terrible way. We have done it in a much more subtle way. Okay, so manual approach is still better here by using the detail tool than the HD tool. So I'm going to hit this and this stick once more. So you can see there's a big change since we started, and this was actually not the start because we even did the color correction. So already it's a huge change. Okay, let's move on to the next tool. Right, so we got a couple of options left here. One is teeth whiten. This will be kind of a homework for you because, to be frank, in this shot there are no teeth. Otherwise it's just again a slider based edit and it works on the teeth, but here it's not going to do it because you can see that it says oops, no teeth detected. Okay, so I'm just going to close the tool, otherwise it'll just help you whiten it. So that'll be kind of like a homework for you. Very easy tool to use. The Reshape tool, I'm just going to be talking about it. It's a slightly controversial tool. I'm just going to be coming back to it. Red eye, again, we don't need it here. This is when you get the red eye effect, which can sometimes happen when you fire a photo in which you used a flash. Haven't you seen those photos where basically, you know, the eyes look a bit red? Okay, the pupils. So that's where you can use it to correct that. Here, it's simply not needed, so we're not going to be using it. Now, one of the tools which I really like, which is a part of the premium tool, is this the relight option, which is the last one. Okay, so this is not available to us, but I still want to show you. It's a really cool tool if you ever decide to use the premium version of Picsart. What this does is it adds like a glow to a particular part of the face. Can you see? And you can control this size. Especially in this particular shot where we were struggling with the color balance, I think this does a fantastic job in restoring that by adding this little glow. You can of course increase the brightness, but the brightness is fine. Can you see? It really, really helps. It's like adding an artificial light after you've taken a shot. This is one tool I wish it was available in the free version. Unfortunately, we do not have it, so we're going to discard this. All right, finally, I'm going to be showing you the Reshape tool, which is very similar to the Liquify tool in Photoshop, and it's kind of slightly just like that. Liquify tool is slightly controversial because it's all about changing the body and the face shapes and all, but again, I'm just showing you how this is done. So I'm going to hit the Reshape tool here. You're going to get 4 options: refine, enlarge, reduce, and restore. Refine means that once we start using it, we can just change the shapes of wherever we're painting and using the brush. Okay. Enlarge obviously is going to make that thing, wherever you run your brush, slightly bigger in size, usually used for eyes, just to increase the size of the eyes. She already has good sized eyes, okay, so it's not really needed here. Reduce obviously is going to decrease the size of something, usually used for lips, noses, okay. And restore, if you feel because you can easily make a big mistake by using these tools, okay. So restore, wherever you run it, is just going to restore it back. You have to be very, very careful with these tools. It has to be done the job in a very subtle way. First of all, I don't think this photograph requires it at all, any change of shape to the face, but still, you never know. Your client might ask you, so you should know it, okay? So let's see how the refine tool works. We're just going to push the face from both sides to make it a bit narrow by using this tool. So I'm going to slightly maybe use a medium sized brush. I'm going to zoom in, okay, and just using my finger, just going to push it slightly here. You see, it has to be very subtle. Just pushing that in. Okay, not more than this, otherwise it starts to look really bad. I'm going to decrease the size a bit and do it for the left cheek. Okay, so you see, if you hit that top icon, the door-like thing, it shows you the before and after. Just done it in a very subtle way. Let's see how enlarge would work. So usually it's done on the eyes. I'm going to decrease the size a bit and just run it once on the eyes. Small. Yeah, that is, I really overdid things, you see. So maybe increase the size of it just to show you that this is working. Can you see? Just making those eyes a bit bigger. We don't want to do that because she already had big enough eyes. So I'm going to hit restore brush and just run it there. Okay. Okay, so you can see the changes only on the cheeks. You're going to use the reduce brush once on the lips, just very slightly, and once on the nose. Okay, so let's see the before, you see. Okay. Just decrease the size. Okay, like I said, see the before and after a couple of times before you hit the check mark. If you feel you're not comfortable with this, you are not sure, I would highly recommend you press that back icon and go back and don't use this tool, because this can really mess up things if you don't use it the right way. Okay, I don't think this photograph required this particular edit, so I'm going to hit the cross so that we discard these changes. And now if we look at this shot, we're going to hit the check mark. This is what we started off with, and after all that retouching process, we resulted with a shot which looks like this. Still looks real, still maintains the original texture, doesn't look fake, but overall definitely it looks way better than what we started off with. And that's how a good retouch shot should be. Still real, but still with improvements. Okay, so this was the retouching video. We're going to have some more fantastic edits which are coming. I'll see you in that video. Bye for now.